My name is Anjali Shah, and by day I work at Google, but by night I write a healthy food blog called The Picky Eater. Well, so I remember when I was in college, food is just about sustenance. It's all about late night pizzas and scarfing down sandwiches in between classes, and you don't really think about food in and of itself as something to be admired or something special. And I remember the first time that I realized that food could be something more than that was when I decided to treat my then boyfriend, now husband, to a fancy birthday dinner in San Francisco. And I'd never really been to fine dining before. I didn't really know what to expect, but I was really excited to try something new. And when we got to the restaurant and I looked at the menu, I saw things like chanterelle mushrooms and pearl onions and spices like cumin and coriander and garlic and ginger combined with ingredients I'd never even heard before, like quinoa. And it just opened my eyes to a whole new world of food. And that meal was like a journey. Every bite was a different combination of complex layers of flavor that just exploded in your mouth. And it just changed my perception of food and my thoughts about food forever. It was really one of the coolest experiences I'd ever had, and I came out of that meal just having a newfound appreciation for food and developing this new passion for food, which is carried itself through and just grown since that meal. And that was really when I fell in love with food. Well, obviously I love, going out to dinner with my friends and sharing a meal with people who are close to me and connecting with people through food. But I think the real way that food impacts my social life is through travel. One of the things my husband and I love to do is explore new countries that we've never been to before and explore the local cuisines in those countries. I love going somewhere to a restaurant that I've never been before in a foreign country and eating something that I've never tasted before. And while that's pretty hard because there's a lot of, different types of cuisines in California itself, there's just something to be said for eating freshly made mozzarella in Italy from the local farmer who just made it a few hours ago, or eating traditionally made patatas bravas at a tapas bar in Barcelona. Those are just experiences like nothing else, and it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about doing is exploring local cuisines through travel and connecting with the people in those countries over meals that you never would have met otherwise. So I'd say that's how food really impacts my social life. Well, originally my inspiration came from my husband because when we got married, he was sort of this fast food loving white bread guy, and I grew up in this granola, organic obsessed household, and our two food philosophies, let's just say, weren't as compatible as our personalities were. And so in the beginning it was really about bridging that gap and figuring out how to cook meals that reminded him of foods he'd had growing up but were much healthier versions of those comfort foods. And so that was my original inspiration, and that's why I taught myself how to cook and why I started my blog. But now it's really, my inspiration really comes from all of the people that read my blog all over the world. It's really about sharing the knowledge that I've learned through marriage and through food and connecting with my readers through my blog. And it's so rewarding when I get an email or a comment from a reader who says that I inspire them to eat healthier, or that my blog exposed them to a dish or a recipe that they never would have tried otherwise. And it's really those kinds of things that inspire me every single day. So it's probably no secret that I'm obsessed with healthy food. But it's more than that for me. It's about healthy food that tastes good, and it's about putting food into your body that really makes you feel good. And, so it's not like I want to eat cardboard all day, but I want to find out how to make healthier versions of the foods that I love, like a healthy version of mac and cheese, or a healthy version of French fries. So for me, the aspect of food I'm most obsessed with is eating healthy, fresh, and organic. And the little secondary part of that is making that taste really good. So my food philosophy really centers around a belief that I have that healthy food can taste good, that it can be flavorful and delicious and accessible and mainstream, and all you have to do is educate people about it and bring them along as you explain to them what healthy food is about. And I think it really was always a part of me because of how I grew up and my parents educating me about eating whole foods and staying away from processed foods. But I never really found it or had to articulate it until I got married, because that's really when I had to figure out how to bridge the gap between my husband's food world and my food world. And what I realized through marriage and through food is that, you can affect change in people, but you can't force it on them. You have to educate them and share the food lessons that you've learned and bring them along. And eventually, that change does happen, and it just reinforces my philosophy and my belief that healthy food can taste good. So, yes, I've definitely had disasters in the kitchen. Teaching myself how to cook led to many disasters in the first few months of cooking. I remember one time, it was just a few months after I had gotten married, and I decided that I was going to make soup from scratch, and I was really excited about it. And I had all the ingredients in the pot, and the soup was bubbling and it was smelling great. And then the next step in the directions was, take the soup in batches and puree it in a blender and then return it back to the pot. And I thought, hey, easy enough. I have a blender, I know how to use it, and that shouldn't be a problem. So I, did exactly what it said. I took the soup, I put it in the blender, and I put on the lid and I hit start. And what I didn't know is that if you put hot soup in a blender, then the soup expands when you turn the blender on, and the whole thing can explode if you have too much soup in the blender. And that is exactly what happened. As soon as I hit start, the lid flew off the blender and the soup went everywhere, and it was all over our cabinets and our counters, and I let out this huge scream, and my husband came into the kitchen expecting some massive disaster. And then he sees me, holding the soup spoon with our dinner everywhere but the pot where it was supposed to be. And we both just started cracking up. And the good news was there was still some soup left that we could eat for dinner, but needless to say, the cleanup definitely took longer than the cooking that day. So I think my personal victory in the kitchen has been a bit of a longer journey, but it has been getting my husband to think about food in the same way that I do, to think about it as an experience, as a way to try out new flavors and tastes, and to really think of it as a journey versus just sustenance. And I remember when I first started dating my husband, and I asked him to pick up some apricots from the store, and he told me that he didn't know what apricots were. And I looked at him like he was crazy, because who hasn't heard of apricots? But now, he can identify different flavors like garlic and ginger, and he knows about all the different fruits and vegetables that are out there, and he goes grocery shopping, and he really enjoys the meals that I prepare at home, and that really is a personal victory for me. So right now, I am really craving my version of a traditional Indian dish called saag paneer, except I make it with tofu paneer, and I add in coconut and collard greens and spiced cauliflower, and I serve it with a sweet potato cardamom puree and a mint chutney, and the combination of sweet and spicy flavors just creates these little explosions of excitement in your mouth every time you take a bite. And it's one of those dishes that just warms you up from the inside out on a cold day. And it's pretty cold today, and it's almost dinner time, so I'm definitely ready to eat that. So, in general, I try to eat pretty healthy. It's obviously one of my passions. But that being said, I don't deprive myself of the foods that I enjoy that may not be as good for you. So, I definitely indulge in dessert. I actually have dessert every day. I just eat it in moderation. But if it was my last meal on earth, I'd definitely go all out on the dessert. I would have a big, warm, gooey, freshly baked chocolate chip cookie with vanilla ice cream, hot fudge, caramel, and nuts sprinkled all over, and I would just pick up that spoon and dig right in.